I wanted to share my thoughts on the whole idea of the rapture of the church. There's a popular belief that the church will be raptured before the Great Tribulation. But it's a popular belief that I do not believe is based on scripture whatsoever. There is not one scripture that directly says that the church will be raptured before the Great Tribulation. There isn't one. There's lots of verses that the people who believe in a pre-tribulation rapture use, but there is a necessity for a presupposition before each of the scriptures. So they first of all add the idea that this has to be because of this, or it has to be because of that, and then they read it. And that's reading into scripture. It's not reading out of scripture. There isn't one verse in all of scripture from beginning to end where you will read out of the scripture that the church will be raptured before the Great Tribulation. In fact, it indicates much more clearly in many places that the church will not be raptured before the Great Tribulation, but at the end of the Great Tribulation. I think it's wishful thinking that people have, that we won't be left behind, and I hear people say things like Christ is not going to allow his bride to be beaten and mistreated. That's probably one of the most foolish arguments I've ever heard, because his bride has been mistreated and abused right away from the beginning. They were thrown to the lions, they were set on fire in the Colosseums, they were beaten and murdered, sawn in half. They had every kind of horrible thing done to them, and they're still being persecuted today. But it's in our Western society where we don't know what tribulation is, we don't know what persecution is, and we haven't suffered it. And it's those people that push the idea of a pre-tribulation rapture more than anyone else, because they somehow have this idea that we're so special, we're not going to have to go through this. In fact, if you go out to some of the places in the world, in Africa I guess, and some of the other places where Christians are being persecuted, they have no problem accepting that they will be here for the Great Tribulation, because they know what persecution is. But for some reason, the pre-tribulation proponents have this idea that they're going to be rescued. They're special. They're not going to be mistreated. It's not a biblical truth. You won't find one scripture that directly says that the church will be raptured before the Great Tribulation. And that's my thought on it. I could go through many scriptures, and I'm sure if there's any comments, I can give you scriptures to back up what I'm saying. But for now, it's not. In my belief, we are definitely in the end times, and we are coming to the point where the Antichrist will rise up. I don't know how soon. It feels like it'll be soon. But then again, if I had been around during World War II, I might have thought that Hitler was the Antichrist. So, and I'm sure many people thought the same thing throughout history. But it looks like it. For me right now, it looks like we're drawn near it, with all the perversion and everything that's going on in the world, with all the push for the one world currency and the one world government and all that. It definitely looks like it's preparing the way for this one world leader, this Antichrist, to rise up. So I do believe that is coming. I do not believe for a second that means that the church is about to be raptured imminently. I don't believe that's a biblical truth. And I've listened to many teachings on it. I've never ever heard one scripture that supports it without presupposition, without adding to the text. And I've never read any in all of scripture that says the church will be raptured beforehand. So for me, I would suggest Christians need to prepare themselves for the Great Tribulation, to prepare themselves for persecution, to prepare themselves to see the Antichrist. As it says in Second Thessalonians, that these things are not going to happen until the man of perdition is revealed. Now, he doesn't get really revealed until 3.5 years in, and even if he had, even if people said, well, no, we'll know him at the beginning of the tribulation, he still has to be revealed first before these things are going to happen, and certainly before the rapture is going to happen. So that just puts that out the window as well. So that's my thought on it.